Set. We've gotten things kicked off and running. I think it's time to focus in on a nonprofit.
Let's bring out our first in-studio guest, ladies and gentlemen. We want to bring him over. Matt Dubois is the executive director of the Patriot Resilient Leader Institute in Guilford, New Hampshire. Come on over and have a seat. Nice to see you, Matt.
Very nice to meet you.
How are you, sir?
Thanks very much. Appreciate you being
under
here.
the mic. That's good.
I didn't realize belly dancing and running was required.
Yeah, it's not really required. It's okay.
That's how we roll.
Matt, again, the executive director of Patriot Resilient Leader Institute in Guilford. They facilitate therapeutic retreats for military veterans, first responders, and their loved ones to help them cope with the devastating consequences of their service. They have held 83 different retreats since 2014,
wow,
serving over 780 participants. And I'm going to start off with this, that I love that we live in a time where we recognize that there is need to pay attention to people that have done this kind of work and the after effects of it and helping them heal through it. And that is one of the great things about living in this day and age, is that we finally recognize it and are doing something to help.
That's a fact. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for everybody for creating this event.
You're welcome.
PTSD and other mental injuries are just like spraining your ankle. You can fix them. You just have to seek help, and that seems to be the biggest piece, is getting people in the door. And again, we're up to actually 85 retreats and just over 800 people now. So,
is it getting easier? Because I know there was always that resistance, like, I don't need help. I don't need help. But people seem now in the job, whether the first responders or military, seem to be much more ready to go, yeah, I think I need some help. Are we seeing an increase in that? More people are accepting the help and looking for it when they need it?
Yes, the stigma is not gone, but it's going away.
That's great, great.
In the military, we've got very senior leaders that put mental health days on their calendar for all to see.
Right.
In southern New Hampshire, the police have formed a thing called the Critical Incident Stress Management Team, which is essentially peer support for people that have come under some form of trauma.
Right.
And that is well supported by the chiefs of police and throughout the first responder community. So again, the stigma's not gone, but it is largely going away, and it won't be long if we move everybody in the right direction.
Moving in the right direction. That's what I was going to say.
Matt, what do these retreats look like? Can you take us through high level? What do you do?
Absolutely. So our retreats are typically, and we do a whole host of different kinds of retreats. They're typically 3 to 4 days long.
Okay.
Typically start at noon on one day, and 3 or 4 days later at noon on the next day we'll stop. 3 components. The components are facilitated counseling. We do life skills workshops, and that sort of depends on what the flavor of the retreat is, and I'll get to that in a minute. And I think what sets our retreats apart from others is we do a lot of outdoor activities.
Excellent.
So, and there's a lot of studies that say that outdoor activities are good for the soul and good for people that are suffering from mental issues.
Work the body, work the spirit.
Absolutely.
Right. That's fantastic.
Absolutely. And there's a recent study by, I think it's the Sierra Club, that basically says people that are suffering from PTSD or other things like that, when they get outdoors and do these kinds of things, they get better quicker.
Yeah, and that extends to even recovery. People going through recovery, that being outdoors and doing those kind of things works for such a myriad of different reasons and causes.
Yeah. Correct. And to get back to the multiple different kinds of retreats, we have retreats that are geared for couples, individuals, families, those that have suffered military sexual trauma, those that have suffered a host of other things. We have creative retreats. We do a couple of equine retreats a year. So we try to mix it up, and we're at 17 retreats this year, hoping to get to a total of 30, maybe even 40, because the demand is out there.
I'm not surprised by your numbers. And don't hold me to this, but I thought I read somewhere not that long ago, or was told by a veterans group, that there are somewhere in the neighborhood of 100,000 veterans or active service members in New Hampshire. We have one of the highest per capita veteran populations in the country. And when you start multiplying that out with neighbors, direct family members, and friends, you're talking about an impact of at least a third of the state easily of people that are somehow directly, closely connected to our veterans.
Correct. For a state that doesn't have any major military bases, we're approaching 10% of the population of
That's
veterans.
remarkable.
And of course, you throw in first responders, and it depends on how you measure first responders.
Sure.
Because it's not an easy term to measure, but there's about 100,000 in the New England area.
Right.
And again, I think what separates our veterans from our first responders, they experience different things, but they react the same, so they actually integrate well. We've done some combined retreats with them. That works out well. But our first responders are largely still on the job.
Right.
Many of them are not retired. So our veterans don't necessarily go back to war, but our first responders are going back in the streets.
Right.
So many of them have told us that we've saved lives, and it may not be their life.
Right.
It may be the life of the person that they saved.
So are we talking police, fire, EMTs primarily when it comes to first responders, or
Primarily,
does that extend?
and dispatchers.
Yes.
And I say that because
Right.
dispatchers are sort of like the military drone operators.
Right.
Yeah.
They're not getting shot at, but what they see is horrendous.
Yeah, I mean, I have a law enforcement in my family, and some of the things they see, they can't unsee.
Exactly.
And helping them deal with that, you can only tuck that away and hide it for so long. But having the ability to check into a program and do a program like yours, one of those retreats, can be life-saving, not only for them, but for the people around them too, because they need to do their job well. So it's like you said, it's like a ripple that just goes into the other families and people throughout their lives.
It does.
It's beautiful.
Exactly.
It's great that you're involving families.
Thank you. It's a couple of things worth mentioning is one, it doesn't cost anybody to come to our retreats. All we ask is that they get to us.
Right.
But also we have a 6-month follow-up program. We don't want them, the difference between when somebody walks in the door and when they walk out is almost immeasurable, and it makes everybody feel good. It makes me feel good, certainly. It's easy to get out of bed in the morning.
Sure.
But we want to follow up with them for 6 months afterwards to make sure that this sticks. So we give them some goals to chase, and we keep them in their group in a private social media setting where they can keep in touch with each other and us.
Yeah.
And we check in on them from time to time to make sure they're living up to what they said they wanted to do.
Do you find that the people who have gone through the program tend to come back because they want to perhaps pay it forward and help someone else as a peer-to-peer?
They're our best volunteers.
I bet they are.
They are our best volunteers. In
That's
fact, many
fantastic.
of the people on our board have been through our program. It really is a wonderful program that way.
There is one board member I want to mention. Kurt Weber received a 2022 Board Impact Award at the New Hampshire Center for Nonprofits Nonprofit Impact Celebration, quote, for his service to the veteran and first responder communities as the founder of the Patriot Resilient Leader Institute.
Awesome.
When that kind of thing, you see that kind of recognition, that kind of awareness that gets raised, that's got to be part of what brings you joy in the job that you do.
Absolutely, and Kurt's a bit of a force of nature.
Yeah.
The origin story, he and a couple other guys were skiing. He's a veteran, a Green Beret. He lives in the Guilford area. They were skiing and they saw somebody ski by with some adaptive equipment and thought to themselves, man, this would be a great place to take care of veterans.
Yeah.
The beauty of the lakes region and the mountains, and the idea was born, and honestly, we wouldn't be where we were if it weren't for Kurt's passion.
Right. That is great. What a phenomenal program. And because you mentioned that people aren't paying anything, you already answered the question of what do you need. So you need the resources to be able to help to keep this program up and running.
That's a fact. And we're pretty efficient. We have 93 cents of every dollar goes to the veteran or first responder. It costs about $600. We're a program, not a place. We don't have a physical facility. We use those things around us. It costs about $600 a person to put them through our thing. But I mean, if you want to help a lot of people, that's a lot of money.
When you help somebody, and like you said, they become your biggest cheerleader, supporter, volunteer, that says everything you need to say.
You bet.
Because these are people that have experienced things that most people can't fathom, and yet they find in that service like rejuvenation and purpose. It's great. It's beautiful, wonderful.
Any
job.
organization where the customers and the employees are your biggest cheerleaders, you
right.
pretty much got lightning in a bottle.
You're right.
So Matt, thank you. This is the Patriot Resilient Leader Institute in Guilford. And I mean, this just really tugs on the heartstrings because we're talking about the men and women who have signed up to sacrifice, to serve others, to serve a cause greater than themselves. And there's no greater give back to these men and women than through this type of a program.
And PRLI is the blanket organization that runs Camp Resilience. Most people know us as Camp Resilience.
That's fantastic. Well,
great
thank
to see you, and thank you for your work.
Thank
Matt,
you.
thanks
Pleasure
a lot.
to be here, and thank you all.
It's great to meet you. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
Appreciate that very much.
There you go. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. Matt Dubois, everybody, the Executive Director of the Patriot Resilient Leader Institute in Guilford. That's the kind of broad spectrum that you can reach today through New Hampshire Gives, because we could talk. Last night we talked to a fiddle player and instructor that has a fiddle program, reaching out all across the state to youth and people that play the fiddle, and it's just. And then there was the horticulturist that was growing farm. I mean, It's such a broad spectrum. It's amazing. All of this goes on right here in New Hampshire.
It is. It's fantastic. And that's why we're so thrilled and honored to be sitting here to help raise these funds for 590 different organizations, because it literally covers the myriad number of interests that are possibly had here through our nonprofits and services like that. And kudos and hats off to Matt and all those who are helping our first responders and our veterans to help fight through whatever they have experienced that might be lingering, because like you pointed out, and it's so great to hear, the stigma is finally going away.
Yeah, and it should have gone away a lot sooner, to be honest with you. But the fact that we live in a time now where people recognize PTSD, they know it's real, and there are many things that cause it. The fact that we're dealing with it and losing that stigma is a win for everybody. So, and especially for our heroes.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. So, and if I was going to throw down any challenge for people.